Hey, hockey fans, T-Boz is 13-3 here with top shelf guest, Fernie, British Columbia native, former Medicine Hat Tiger, NHL veteran, and noted tough guy, Shane Churla. This episode is sponsored by Riverside Bike and Skate, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dooley's Pub, Ryan Flagg at State Farm Insurance, Eau Claire Ford, and Williams Diamond Center. Mogi.
Hey, we're here at Lou Nanny's Tavern 23 in Edina. They've been gracious enough to allow us a table here in the corner, and we are looking forward to having a good conversation with Shane. So welcome, Shane.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, first of all, let's start off. Fernie, British Columbia. You're in the Rocky Mountains. Was childhood fun up in that area?
You know, knowing what I know now and looking back, I was so lucky to grow up in an area like that. You know, small town. I think when I grew up, there was about 8,000 people altogether. But I'm a big outdoors guy, so I was in heaven. You know, hunting, fishing. We couldn't. I know my mom couldn't get us in the house. You know, like you can't get the kids out of the house now, but she couldn't get us in back then. So it was really a fun time to grow up.
Do you still follow those passions of hunting and fishing?
I do. I live in Montana now, so I'm just across the border, about 2 hours door to door from where I grew up. So.
Oh, wow, nice.
But in the U.S.
Yeah.
So you say surrounded by the Rocky Mountains, was it the one town, Shane, or were there other towns in the area as well?
There's some, but we're in a valley. It was in a valley, so you were surrounded by mountains. I mean, 360 out your window. No matter where you looked, you're looking at something spectacular. So, but there's some smaller towns. I played Junior B in Sparwood, which was about 30 minutes away, but encompassed both cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty sweet area. Okay, now, obviously we're talking hunting and fishing. Mom couldn't get you into the house. Little pond hockey in the winter then, or what started out, what got you interested in the game?
Yes, actually we lived right on the, called the Elk River. It went right by the house, and then there was a backwater to that, a big pond and a big slough that would freeze over, and we spent almost every day in the winter. As long as we had ice, we're on that pond playing some shimmy. So,
Did you guys lose any pucks out there?
well, that was one thing. You learned how to stick handle a little bit better, because once you took a shot, it was a long way to go and get
There
it.
you go.
So.
You didn't have any neighborhood dogs that went
No.
fishing for you, did you?
Unfortunately not, no. But my dad would come down, and he would bring up like a manual gas-powered pump, and he would chop a hole in the ice, flood it down for us, and he even held a few practices out there for me. But so it was fun, yeah. Till your feet were ready to freeze off, and you came home crying because they were frozen solid. But other than that, I wouldn't trade it for a minute.
But when you did that, you warmed up and you went right back out.
Well, we were out there all day, so when we did come in, that was usually at dark.
Okay.
So no night hockey. Unfortunately, they didn't put the lights up. So
Probably hard to run an extension cord out there.
Yeah, I'm sure. So when you were starting your organized hockey, did you start out as a forward, or what position did you play? Or
yeah, I always played forward, either center or wing, and played all my minor hockey in Fernie. My dad, who was a player, back in the original six, he didn't play, but he was part of the Chicago's organization. He coached a few of my teams. Then it was good and bad, because he had a wealth of knowledge, but anytime somebody needed to get straightened out, he usually used me as the beating post. So whether I was for me or somebody else, so he can inflict some anger on it and get some shock value from it. But no, it was good. He was I thank my dad for everything that happened, and I think he was 100% in charge of me and getting to where I needed to get to. So,
Well, if you had a dad as a coach who played then, did he have avenues for you as far as where he kind of wanted to pigeonhole you for your trajectory, or was it a matter of you were getting recognized for your talents and teams were coming to look at you?
Oh, my dad was a one-off. Like there was a lot of things that we did. It wasn't always for the fun value of it. It was whether it was playing ball in the backyard. He'd throw you, 50 grounders as hard as you could throw them, and if you missed one, it was once around the block on a run. So, and the same as a player, we were doing Russian training before Russian training was even a thing. He caught something on TV, and next thing you know, he's walking me up and down the stairs on my hands. So,
oh my gosh!
But it was all, like I say, I credit him for all the success I'd had. So, because he knew how hard it was. And you can't candy coat that. If you want to make it, then it's 100% buy-in, or else don't do it.
So I'm looking at you here, Shane, across the table, and I can see the definite outline of some very massive pipes you've got under that shirt.
Yeah.
So is that something that you've continued to do then? You obviously are in great shape.
Yeah, I do like to work out, and especially in the scouting business, it's almost mandatory because spend so much time sitting down, whether it's on an airplane, whether it's in a vehicle, or whether it's a game. It's typical with guys when they first start scouting. It's like college. They put the freshman 40 or 20 pounds on or whatever it is. It's automatic. And every new guy that comes in, whether they're an ex-player or not, it's a different life. And if it's not scheduled and if you're not meticulous about it, then you can go the other way real fast too. So so I got into a good routine that way. I've always carried it from when I left hockey to try to stay half decent fit. So,
a lot of guys seem to do that. And I guess it's just the internal instinct. You went through it every day of your life when you're playing. It's just an automatic in your system to keep doing and wanting to do that.
Well, one caveat on that is I won't get on a stationary bike. For that reason.
Okay.
So much time on those stationary bikes. I'll do anything but the stationary bike. So
all that time and you went nowhere.
Will not. You couldn't drag me on one of those things.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Oh, you ended up playing for Medicine Hat in the WHL.
Right.
How did you end up going there, and what was your time like? At that location.
Sure. It's kind of funny because I was really at a crossroads at that point. I was playing Junior B, which was a lesser league. Most of my friends, we had an above-ground mine in the valley. Most of the guys went there and they made huge dollars. And, I was still holding on to my dream, but it was dissipating fast. I really didn't, I was 18 at that time, and I ended up getting a walk-on to Medicine Hat. One of their scouts lived in the area and got me there on a walk-on tryout, and I ended up making the team. And I was drafted as a +1. I was drafted as an 18-year-old the next year. So I went through my draft year and drafted as a year older, like your typical draft year.
Sure. Okay. So you made an immediate impact in Medicine Hat with your physical play. Where did your tenacity come from?
Well, it's funny because when I grew up, I was, believe it or not, considered one of the more skilled guys in the valley, and but smart enough to know when I went to a higher level that I can't be that guy.
At least you were smart enough to recognize that.
A lot of guys can, and that's a big problem with the players I watch today. But get on that after. But I realized that these guys were much more skilled than I was, and I had to find a avenue. And even though even though I was a skilled guy growing up, I still had, his physicality, again, instilled from my father. But so I went to Medicine. I got off beat here. I went to Medicine Hat and, made the team. And, you were asking me about, I'm sorry.
Your tenacity.
Yeah. Well, I learned that I had to be something different, and the best way I could do it was, to be an energy guy, penalty killer, and that's how I cut my teeth in junior. So by that way, and then never seemed to get out of that mold. But I had somebody told me, so it was another ex-tough guy. He says, well, once they know you're tough, they'll cut your pay in half and they'll want you to do it all the time. So it was an inside tough guy joke, but not far from the truth.
You recognize the fact that you were kind of in a situation because of your size, your girth, your tenacity. You had to put up some numbers in the penalty box, or not had to, but you did when you were with Medicine Hat. Did your coach kind of mold you or push you in that direction as the team tough guy?
No, I don't. There's some coaches in the game that they call goon coaches or whatever. Typically, they're the guys that were not tough at all when they played, but sure. They coach a different style. But I never had that. I never needed it. I always read the game fairly well, knowing when there needed to be, a change in momentum. That's where I can go out and, some big collisions. And it wasn't always about fighting. I just love to hit people, but people don't like to get hit. So that's where that takes the side road, and you end up throwing down with somebody because they don't like to get hit.
You're just a physical guy.
The good Lord said, it's better to give than receive, right? So.
Like it. Getting all biblical on us over here.
Well, as you look back, you probably have some fond memories of the guys that you played with. And when you're playing in that league, you're on the road a lot. Any pranks or jokes that you can think of that you guys used to pull on each other back when you were on the road?
In junior? Yeah, well, see, when I played in the Western Hockey League, people don't understand the travel involved out there. We would go from Medicine Hat to Portland, and that's 25 to 26 hours. Oh. And I mean, you made it. You went there, you got out to eat, got back on the bus, you slept in the bus. Like, I never wanted to be little until then, because the little guys slept up in the luggage compartments, right?
Yeah.
Big guys, you'd bring a chunk of foam, and it was far from luxury, And now some of the teams that are out there, that are further out there, they have the sleeper buses, and all that's changed. But I do have a few stories they're a little more on the R-rated side that I might have to refrain from telling.
Okay, understood.
So one thing we're noticing a lot in the NHL currently, I'm guessing you are too, there have been a lot of real clean hits, a lot of good hits. And it seems like there's always a fight after that. I mean, a clean hit's a clean hit. Shouldn't we just move on? Or
I agree. There's one thing to show that you're a teammate, and it's a clean hit. I mean, it's depending on what that player as he sees it. But I agree with you. I'd like back in the day, even though there was a lot more fighting, there was clearly not a fight after, because there was a lot of big hits. And if that was the case, you just would have had one big fight, But usually guys pick their spots. If it was something dirty, there was definitely retribution. You take a number if you couldn't get him at that point. But and there was a lot of hatred. I think there was a lot more hatred back then than there is now. And I think partially where I've seen the game change negatively is, I'm still old school. I don't like to see guys circling up before the game on the ice and talking. And, you got times to see your friends out. You're out there to play a game. You're out there to win a game. It should be business. So, but that's just the way I feel.
Well, I don't think we disagree with that.
Oh, I don't. I see more of the kids now playing together in the summertime and the spring and fall leagues and things like that, and then they go their separate ways during the hockey season. And maybe it's just different. You guys probably didn't have something like that growing up.
Yeah, well, no, but I played here in Minnesota. I know the culture around here, and seen a lot of high school, which I never played in. Like, we never had that in Canada. It was mostly major junior or tier 2 or. But I do know noticed that, the high school player, they're all friends. And it's hard sometimes because you won't get it. Like, even though a guy could be, much larger and much stronger than everybody, he won't enforce that. Like, those are his friends. He'll play, where you want to see him play to his size. You have a God's gift. Be a bully, because you can be. You know what I mean? But I don't mean that in a negative sense. But I mean, he can separate himself from maybe a smaller skilled guy that has tools that he doesn't have. But I did notice that there's clearly a camaraderie with the high school, and not bad or at all. It's just that they're all friends. So that next level of compete, sometimes you wish you could see more. So you almost have to get them split up and playing to really understand who they are. So
sure, get their true talents to come out
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. You eventually, you were recognized obviously for your hockey abilities, and were eventually drafted by the Hartford Whalers. Looking back as a kid growing up, was it a goal or a dream to be in the NHL? And what was that like, getting the draft notice that you made it?
Well, if I go back to we touched on like junior B, at that point, that was the furthest thing from my mind. Was I didn't see it coming to life, because I was running out of time. And then once I got to major junior, I said if I could only play at major junior, that was my first, like I said, attainable goals. And I think after I hit major junior, I said, well, if I could only play pro hockey, if I could make the American League, and that's, I didn't do it consciously. It was just kind of how I went about it. And so I never just said, I'm going to be an NHL player. There's no question in my mind. Of course, once I had a taste of it, I said, okay, these guys aren't that, guys that I was around at the time, there's not that big of a discrepancy here. We all have different roles and stuff, but and so, like I say, I played major junior. I got drafted. I played in the American League, and then once I was in the American League, I'm going same thing. I think I can get there. It's not that far away. I'm close. I got 1 foot out the door, touching it, and
you're ready.
So again, and it just came to Will and everything else to separate, have to, and I knew I had to outwork everybody, to have a chance, because my skill level wasn't standalone. So you had to be, in better shape than everybody. You had to be better conditioned. You had to be harder. You had, all those things. So, and that was my ingredients. So
you didn't have that standout skill, like you say, but you were more the complete package.
Well, I had what other players didn't have either, or maybe they did but didn't want to do it, because it's not for everybody. You want to play that style, and there's repercussions physically, mentally, everything. And trust me, I'd rather have been a goal scorer and been playing on the power play. So sleep like a baby before games instead of going, oh my God, I'm going to have to face these 5 guys, but so it's a path I chose. It's by far probably the hardest one, I would say. And I shouldn't say that, because scoring goals is hard, but harder on your body, harder on, your mentally. There's a lot that goes into it. So doing it game in, game out, again, scoring goals game in, game out is no easy task either. Yeah. So I shouldn't say that it's any easier, just easier on the body. So
with your reputation on the ice, obviously you had to drop the gloves quite a few times, but were you able to save most of your chicklets?
I lost my front tooth when I was in minor hockey, and knock on wood, I'm yet to get out of the day, but that was the only one that I lost, really.
Wow. Wow. You were able to protect yourself.
Well, that one got knocked out a few times, but it was already knocked out back in the...
So that didn't count, right?
So I can only count it once.
Right. It's the same tooth.
Very good.
Put it back in. So back in your day, Shane, every team had a heavyweight. That everybody knew that once that person was out on the rink, there was a chance there was going to be some fireworks. Who's your toughest opponent out there when you were running that?
You know, like a lot of people have asked me that. It's that was day to day. Like there's so many guys, you know, but there was, you know, at the NHL level, guys like Probert and stuff, where he was tough because he would come out of his gear and he was long and had a lot of reach. And Tony Twist was another guy, but his body was enhanced medically, so he was, you know, he was a huge man. But so some of those guys could hurt you if you weren't paying attention. So hurt you bad. So yeah.
You made, I think it was 6 stops: the Whalers, Flames, North Star Stars, Kings, and Rangers. Looking back, what stint or what stop was your favorite?
You know, I really liked my time when I first came to the cities. I loved, you know, I had a young family at that time. It was a great place to raise a family. But I think to look back on them all, I cherish Dallas the most. I love, you know, I got the outdoors. You know, I got to do a lot of hunting out there, and plus, you know, the people were really nice, laid back, and maybe I was at, you know, the pinnacle of my career, so maybe that's why I liked it the most, because I was I was a fan favorite there, and they treated me like royalty. Honestly, it was hard to experience because when we first came there, they were a football city, right? Because of the Cowboys, sure. And so it was funny when I was getting more cheers than Mike Modano. I'm like, going, Mo, what's going on here, man? Like, you know, it's not supposed to be that way. But not all. Like, you know, Mike was a legend. So, but it was a good spot for me. I really enjoyed my time there.
So, did you play with one of our other podcast guests, Craig Ludwig?
Luds, yeah, we were roommates.
Oh boy!
At the start of it, he about killed me. Well, put me out of the league before I got in it, but yeah.
Okay, so his reputation is correct.
Oh no, you probably don't even know half of it. So
okay,
just times it by 5, whatever you heard.
Right. Okay. He gave us some good insight when we interviewed him, but we wondered, you know, he was quite the character. But one of the questions we asked him was, if you look on the line, on the blue line, who's your favorite defensive partner? So the question I've got for you is, you can pick any 2 line mates in the NHL, and you're going out on a line. Who do you want on that line with you?
Well, what I want and what I got was 2 different things, right? I wanted to be with Modano and, you know, whoever else, but, you know, I got my partner in crime, Basil McRae, and whoever was the centerman, but it was usually him and I were the bookends. And, well, I love, you know, Basil's one of my favorite people on this earth, right? So I'd do anything for that man, and I know he would for me. So I enjoyed our time together there. We called each other partners in crime, but I always knew if you messed with one, you messed with both. So it was a fun time playing with Basil.
So what was it like cruising around? I mean, you in and of itself, you're a tough guy. Now you add Basil McRae to the mix too, and you're both out there at the same time. I mean, guys must have been just walking on eggshells out there. They didn't want to do anything wrong.
We had a few more guys than that too. Like we had Mark Tenorti. You know, it depended, but you know, like Tinner was there for a good stretch of us, and we played in the Chuck Norris division here. It was no walking the beach. You know, like you're rolling in Chicago. They had as many weapons as you did, so it was. There's always sparks flying in those games, and it was just a different time, right? So everybody had the nuclear option, and most of them used it nightly. So to be surrounded. I know when we left Minnesota and went to Dallas, that's when our team kind of changed a little bit, because they like more of that. Where Minnesota's more of a purist, they like everything. They like the plays. They like when we first went to Dallas, it was, like I say, it was more of a football mentality. They wanted to see the hits. They wanted to see the fights. That's what was bringing people into the building. So and I think that's how we got our foot in the door there, and then that organization's had some success since then. So they won championships.
Hockey was so new for them down there. So, we interviewed a former Blackhawk, Alex Stalock, who talked about when he was with San Jose, you'd shoot the puck down to the other end of the ice and the fans cheered because they thought it was a big move. Was that something similar with Dallas, where they're brand new to this game? They were probably cheering for anything that was happening.
Yeah, I think they were getting educated on the fly. There was, like you say, there was some applause at times, and guys are going, "What?" Like, what's that all about? But they were having fun, right? But they learned fast. I thought they were good. They were good students of the game. They picked it up faster than expected, and they knew what they wanted to see, and they held the team to standards after the fact. So,
what was the team atmosphere when you guys get notified we're moving from Minnesota down to Dallas?
Yeah, that whole year was a bit different because that's when the Guns were the owners, and we were supposed to be moving to San Jose, or trying to keep all those in. San Jose was the one. No, that wasn't the one. It was that was the first expansion, and then when we made the move to Dallas, Norm Green was the owner here, and there was, I don't know if you know the backstory there, but there was some stuff involved with his wife and some. I don't want to get into that, but it was so they were moving, and then we were supposed to go to Anaheim, and then the league came in and said they wanted Walt Disney in as one of the owners, and that's when they gave Norm, from my understanding, you can go anywhere you want. You could find a match, because we want Disney in at the time to help sell a game. It made sense.
Sure. Yeah.
And then Norm ended up going to Dallas, moved the team there.
Okay.
I'm going to take a little time here to shout out some sponsors. State Farm Insurance. For all your family's insurance needs, see Ryan Flagg at State Farm Insurance in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Ryan has been a proud backer of the hockey community for decades and continues to play the game himself, although he has a bum knee. And we recommend he go to Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine soon. Also, Williams Diamond Center. It's a fun place and a friendly place to find your next sparkling signature piece. Whether you're looking for a custom-designed engagement ring, an anniversary gift, or a self-purchase to celebrate yourself, Williams has price points for every story and budget. Buyers and sellers of estate jewelry, coins, and more. And Eau Claire Ford Lincoln Quick Lane, with the large selection of new and used vehicles available. They buy nice used vehicles any day of the week except Sundays. Eau Claire Ford is here for all your parts and service needs for your vehicle. Ask us about our pickup and delivery options, as well as Saturday service appointments. Visit us today, in-store or online at www.eauclairford.com. Eau Claire Ford Lincoln Quick Lane, proud sponsor of the Breakout Sessions podcast.
The game has changed in different ways since you strapped on the blades. You amassed a little over 2,300 penalty minutes during your tenure with the NHL. Do you think in today's game there's still a spot for somebody that had the grit that you had?
I do. Maybe not to the same extent, but, if you watch the playoffs, the playoffs usually gets back to old school hockey. And I just look at our run last year, and it was, with the Panthers, it was intense. We had most of the team were banged up and injured. But that was those were some physical series. Maybe not so much with the fighting, but the body work and everything else is the same. That was so. I think it's still there. Clearly not to the level that we did it at, but it's I had nothing but respect from. Because I thought the game was starting to get away from that, which they're trying to, because of insurance and injuries and everything else. I'm sure it plays a part, but when it comes down to the winning the big prize, those players still get after it. So
very true.
They're warriors.
Sure.
Everybody's dinged up at that point. And, we saw with your own Matthew Tkachuk last year. He breaks his sternum and he finishes the game and then tries to play the next one. It's like, who does that? Well, hockey players do that.
Yeah, it's funny when we're talking about some player. I'm not going to tell you who, and the guy says dad won't let him play. He's an amateur because he's not 100%. And I'm like, well, I don't know if he ever got the memo, but you're never 100% playing this game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're always playing with. Yeah. You're 100% in July if you're lucky. You know what I mean? But usually you're playing through something, so it's a tough game.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of games. Yeah. So,
former Ranger GM Emil Francis referred to you as the guy with the guts of a slaughterhouse. Was that when you were playing with him, and where did that term come from? Was it just, did you have a discussion with him, and after that talk, it was like,
I think you just watched them play. That was my take on this.
Well,
one.
I think that it was it, but Mr. Francis, how he was always recognized, and he still is. I mean, in stories or in life, he was not a very big man in stature, but he carried
big stick.
Oh yeah, like it was Mr. Francis, and he would walk in, and he was this small little guy, and I'm telling you what, guys were trembling, and he carried some and some serious respect, and for him, he liked my style, of play and that, and he treated me from the day, like I had him in Hartford. He was the general manager in Hartford when I first got drafted. He treated me like gold from our time there together, and I have nothing but respect for him.
When you would go into the corner, looking back in your career, whatever team you were playing with, we're not talking about the physicality of a fight, but we're going to talk about the physicality of going into the corner and fighting for a puck. Who was your toughest guy that you went up against? Who was the defenseman that just ground in the corner?
It's a lot of times it's not the people that you expect. Like it would be more like, I remember I played with a guy, like even in practice, Ulf Dahlin, and you couldn't get the puck off him in the corner. Like he'd spin and jerk and jive, and he just knew how to put his body in between it, and there was an art to it, right? Clearly, when you go in, we call it 50-50 battle, 50-50 pucks, like it's up to anybody who's going to come out with it, right? So sure. It's a question I always ask, even drafted when we're interviewing. I'm like him and say somebody he doesn't like that I know, and I'll say, if I throw a puck in the corner, who's coming out with it? And they're going to say they are, but how, because
sure.
This guy's as hard and miserable as you are. So, I mean, there might be not much left of the puck when it comes out of there, but somebody's going to take the biggest piece. So, it's like, it was like, to your question, it's not exactly who he is. It wasn't always the biggest, most ruggedest guy. It was a guy that had technique and had speed and agility, could spin off you, spin on you, and then again, there's the big dudes, they're just going to come in there and try to manhandle you. So, and they have leverage. Like when I played, I was actually one of the smaller guys. I only played at, I was 6'1", 180 pounds when I first came into the league. Some of these guys are 6'5", 240, 250. Yeah. So you give away size in pounds, and that factors too, right? Big guy like that's got size and reach on you, he sticks his ass in you and uses his reach. It's pretty tough to get the puck off him unless you chop him down, and take a penalty. But so there's an art, there, like I say, the guys that knew how to protect it, and there was an art to that. So they didn't always have to be the biggest guy. They just knew how to use you against you. They'd take your momentum and spin off it a different way and things like that. So not always the guy you thought.
So, Shane, your 90-91 North Star team fell to the Penguins in the Stanley Cup final. Can you describe that run for us? And if you think about it looking back, is there anything that you think the North Stars could have done differently to maybe change the
Yeah, won it.
Well, I know that.
No, it was a funny year because we actually backed into the playoffs. We had to have somebody else lose because our fate wasn't in our hands because we finished before. I forget who it was, and might have been Detroit having to lose, and then it would put us in the last playoff seed. Well, and then from that point on, I actually thought it was a movie in the making. It was just, we started on the road because we were the last seed, and we never had home ice. And we won the first game of every series. And we would lose the second one, would come back home, and would win. And this would just keep going. And we beat, I forget the order of it, but Chicago and St. Louis which one was the league overall leader, and the other one was second.
Wow.
So we beat those two teams out. Then we beat out the Edmonton Oilers, the ex-Stanley Cup champions. And then we unfortunately had a dynasty in the making with Pittsburgh. So, they won their first of two against us, and they won again the next year. But looking back on that, it was, like I say, I thought it had the ingredients of a movie, like a feel-good movie. Like you go, this should never happen, But we came together as a team. Everybody played for everybody. There were just wars too. Like you go back, I mean, every one of those series was a war, and especially getting out of our own division, our own conference. Sorry. And then at the end, Mario was out with a back injury for the first game, and he came back in game 3, and we couldn't overcome his addition. They had so many players on that, but we were still in the games that we lost. It still could have went either way, but there was some areas in our game that dipped a little bit at an unfortunate time, but we're a team, so we're in it. We win together, we lose together. So right. Everybody's as much responsibility for the good and the bad. So.
Wow, spoken like a true professional.
Huh? Team guy.
Yeah, team guy, exactly. You mentioned Mario Lemieux. You played in an era of legendary icons, Hall of Famers, Gretzky, Jagr, Lemieux, and the list goes on. As you look back, if you could pick one or two in the league, in your opinion, who do you feel was the most skilled opponent that you went up against?
Well, I can say it as an opponent and as a teammate, but Wayne, because when I played in Calgary, both Calgary Edmonton teams were both at their pinnacles. Edmonton just won a bunch of Stanley Cups, and then I think it was our first year there, we won the President's Trophy, which is the top team in the National Hockey League, and we always thought, well, we just got to get through Edmonton. If we ever get through Edmonton, we'll win. And then, Wayne, he took us down single-handedly, and then I had the chance to play with him in LA and in New York. And to me, the stuff that he did, it was just, and the athletes are getting better and better every year. So I'm sure somebody's going to surpass them. And there's already some guys in the game today that are, making a lot of noise. He was by the most skilled guy. He would, even when you played with him, he would tell me, I'd look in the glass and I could see a reflection. I says, when I look in the glass, I could see the guy drinking beer on the other side of it. How do you see my reflection in it? To have that kind of focus, but he would throw pucks on his backhand, on your tape, no looks, and then probably the best leader that I played with was probably Mark Messier with the Rangers. Just knew what to say. He would play by example. He could play the game any way it would unfold, but saying things at the right time and the right verbiage, he had a knack for that. And the guys would follow him into to the ocean if he asked you to. So probably the most skilled player and the best leader of those two guys.
Yeah, icons, Hall of Famers for certain.
Unbelievable, yeah.
You mentioned Calgary. We interviewed an old teammate of yours by the name of Gary Suter, and he talked about some of the shenanigans he pulled on some of the new guys or rookies.
He and his buddy Neil Sheehy.
Yeah.
I got traded for Neil.
Oh, did you?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, tell us a little bit about that.
He went to Hartford, I went to Calgary.
Okay.
Is that how that went? Okay. So you never had the opportunity to play with Neil at the time?
No.
All right.
Not at that
well,
time.
and then half the dynamic duo left then. So
Yeah.
you weren't the brunt of any of Suter's jokes then or pranks back in the day.
Well, there was a few that they would do. I remember. I don't know. This is a bad story, but it's only one that's not that extra. I bought the '69 Corvette. It was of course, a '69 that I was working on. I remember one day I was like in the change room trying to get changed, and my underwear was missing. Well, after about an hour search, I went out to my car, and lo and behold, there it is on my antenna. But that's a bad story. Those guys usually left me alone because if they did something bad enough, they didn't want to
The repercussions.
push the bear.
with the
You know what I mean?
consequences.
So that was one good thing about having that reputation. They usually left you alone. So, but they still mess with you. Cut your sticks. Again, that's what I did one time. I ran a good one in practice. We were in the Rangers, and we had to lose like 5 or 6 games in a row. I forget what it was, and I was trying to keep it loose. So, like Wayne's sticks, Gratz, I cut all his sticks about. He had 3 on, so I cut them all about 3 because he never shot the puck very hard. Like he'd always tell you, hey, it doesn't have to hit the back of the net. It's just got to go across the goal line, right? So,
Yeah.
But I cut all his sticks one practice, and we're practicing. All of a sudden, we get to the power play drill, and of course, I'm not on it. I'm sitting watching it, and he's set up in a shooting position, and he goes shoots. There goes one, right? So he kind of looks at it, looks at me, because there was only one guy that would ever mess with him, and that was me. And then the next one, he breaks, and he throws that shaft at me on the bench. And then they go grab the third one, and I told the trainer, no, that one's cut too. And Colin Campbell was our coach. He was not happy. Because we had to wait for him to go get new sticks. All that
And
good
of all
stuff.
the people in the league you're messing
right.
with.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We're going to give a quick shout out to some of our sponsors here. Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine has been committed to the healthcare needs of patients in western Wisconsin since 1954. The orthopedic surgeons and athletic trainers serve many area schools in the Chippewa Valley. Their success and reputation as an outstanding orthopedic clinic can be attributed to the teamwork of friendly, knowledgeable physicians and staff. And Riverside Bike and Skate, Eau Claire's hockey headquarters, which is the oldest hockey store in the state of Wisconsin. Buy hockey gear from the people that play and know the game. And don't forget about their bicycle sales and service, as well as your paddle sports center for kayaks and canoes. And Dooley's Pub has been Eau Claire's home for hockey headquarters and sports fans since 2005. Dooley's is a proud booster of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire and local high schools. Dooley's is located on historic Water Street in providing excellent food and service and has all of your favorite sports televised at all times. Mogi.
So, Shane, following your NHL career, you started scouting for the Dallas Stars.
Actually, I started with the Phoenix Coyotes. That's when Wayne bought
when he was
part of the
coaching
team
down there? Okay.
Well, he had ownership to use his name, and then myself and his brother went in there. That's where I started.
Okay, so was it hard to go from a scout or from a player to a scout?
Well, honestly, right after I retired, the next 4.5 years, I went to Alaska and I guided It was something I had to get out of my system. I guided for Brown Bears. And,
oh my gosh.
And then I came back in. So that made it a little harder because I stepped away from the game for a few years, and then I'm sure if I would have just went in, it would have been seamless, but so to come back in and figured I wanted to get back into the game somehow. We were talking, and that's when Wayne and I were talking, and he said, this is what he was going to do. He was going to go into the Florida or the Phoenix Coyotes, and want to know if I wanted to be part of it. And so we totally restructured both the front office and the scouting staffs, and that's how we started there. So,
well, he must have seen something in you. I mean, he must have seen skill. He must have seen that tenacity and felt that you could find players that kind of fit that mold.
We're all hockey players, but it's funny that I've worked with some Hall of Fame guys that I didn't think were very good evaluators. So it's not always what you were as a player.
Yeah,
it's how how you project, because it's a tough business, because you're trying to figure out some young lad that doesn't even know who he is yet, right? But you're weighing the attributes. What's positive, what's negative, where's he at physically, what's his path, and make those decisions. And like I say, I've worked with guys that never played the game that were outstanding evaluators. I played with guys that were best at what they did as a player and were poor evaluators, in my opinion. So it's a humbling business. It really is. It's we don't have the opportunity to open up a guy's chest and look at the size of their heart. So we have to go off indicators, both skilled, physical, competitively. Normally at the first half of the season, we'll look at a guy's talent, and then don't worry about his character, compete, and then the second half we'll factor in character and compete, and we'll either bring him up the list or bring him down the list, because we don't want to go by talent for the wrong reasons. But at the end of the day, I think the character side of it is just as big as or bigger than any part of his game, because he has to be able to persevere. There's a lot of players like him. He has to find a way to separate himself in certain areas. So, and then again, you look at, I touch back onto those playoffs. It's always keep something like that in the back of your mind when you're looking at a player going, do you see this guy playing in that series? Of course, 6 or 7 years down the road, but there's still indicators there. Guy's got fire in his belly. He's going to show it to you some way. When a guy doesn't, and he's soft, he'll show you that as well. So those are guys you'd sooner play against than with, but we try to manage the best asset we can to where you're picking. So not all the time are you picking high. With Florida, we've been in contention lately, so the last few years we haven't had any grade A picks, but we still got to find a way to make value. So,
how many games a year are you watching, either in person or via video?
Well, normally in person, I was on the road. I was on the road for 230, 240 days.
Wow.
And probably see, before video really came in, now we have a lot of, there's a lot of companies now that just do that. They're on the analytics side of it, but you can watch pretty much any player anywhere in the world. If there's video of it, these places will have them. So we never had that before. When I first started scouting, I put that into my repertoire. I would buy those programs out of my pocket and go and edit out my own. It would take a long time, but I thought it was it was an advantage at the time. Before everybody else had it, I was already using it. So it's a serious advantage, but there's nothing better than the eye test. You know, if you can put eyes on somebody and see how they move, see how they act, and then go and watch them later on, you know, through film, you know, it works, you know. But if you don't know a guy and you see him, because the video is hard sometimes, depends what feed they get it from. It could be at a quicker speed, it could be at a faster, you know, a slower speed of video. So guy could look better or poorer skating when it's not really what he is, you know. So it's clearly a tool to keep your finger on the pulse of guys. Like for me, I got to know the globe, so I got to know the whole world. And I where we have regional people, I have a regional guy in every country in Europe, and I have a regional guy in every like the Ontario League, the Western League, the Quebec League, all those leagues. I'll have an area guy there, and you know that's up to him to know a lot about a little, where I know a little about a lot, and you know, because I don't have the intimacy of watching one group of players the whole year. I'm all over the place. Like I say, wherever the players are in the world, that's where you'll find me, you know, because people always go, where are you going next year? I'm like, wherever the players are, you know, like
Okay.
he's in, well, you know, we haven't been able to get to Russia here lately, which doesn't break my heart, but if he's in Sweden, if he's in Finland, if he's in Switzerland, if he's in Moose Jaw, if he's in New Hope, you know, like that's where I'll be, right? So as long as they meet my criteria, like they got to be a certain level of player. Other than that, it's up to the regional guy, you know, to put the lower level guys in order. I'll see those guys by accident most of the time, but they wouldn't be targets.
So
go ahead, Mo.
In 2020, excuse me, you were named the director of amateur scouting for the Florida Panthers. What does this job entail? I know you just talked a little bit about it, but you're the king of the hill, and then you've got all these regional guys, and
yeah.
so
well, I had the same
filters.
role in both because I came from Montreal, so and then I went from Dallas to Montreal to Florida, and in every place I was the director of amateur scouting.
Okay.
So, but it's what was your question again?
What does the job entail? I mean, obviously it's watching players
Sure.
and managing your other scouts. I can imagine.
Yeah, well, it's you know the funny thing is we say it all the time. One of the hardest parts about the job is making good schedules that work, right? Because there's time and money. You know, you got to justify. You know, you don't want to be flying from one end of the country to the next. Back like you're trying to hit a spot where you can get your best bang for your buck. You know, and see who you want to see. So it's in terms of my job, we'll have, you know, what I don't identify, like for this year, we're not only looking at players this year, but I'm also documenting underages, which are meaning their draft is next year. So I'll have a pretty good idea from my underage list where I need to be next year, but it's always guys will come at different levels. You know, just like me, went from not even on the radar to being a walk-on, you know, as a +1. There's a lot that still happens a lot.
Yeah.
There's guys that are late bloomers, and then there's guys that may go through the draft by 2 years. That now in the Canadian Hockey League they're called an overage, which is a 20-year-old. And those guys you could sign for. You don't draft those guys; you sign them as free agents.
Okay.
So, context of my job is we'll have what I know and the area guys identified. You know, the first half we really run hard and do all of our legwork there. So in the second half, we can kind of key in to where our picks are, and to the players we have slotted in for some of those picks. And that's where I come in. I'm the yes or no guy, like at the end. But clearly, we have a staff. It's like a team, right? It's a team within a team, because I always say, I think, like I talk to the GM all the time, Bill Zito, and I go, you think about today, I go, I think about tomorrow, right? So
That's a good way of
my
looking at
guys
it,
aren't, those guys are usually 4 years out after you draft them. So you got to draft and develop them. And where he's making decisions that are pertinent to today, right? Like day-to-day stuff, where we're acquiring players and assets, and then figuring out, there's a lot that goes into it. People have no idea, and because you don't want everybody to come up at the same year in terms of contracts, because you only have so many contracts, and a lot of times when you see teams rebuilding with bright young players, well, they're all coming up at the same time through their contracts, right? They'll get out of their entry levels, they'll get into now they can sign whatever they want. Well, now you got 7 or 8 guys all on that same ticket, right? Well, it's hard
to stay under
now
the
you got
cap
to
doing
sign
that.
7 guys to some pretty big contracts.
Yeah.
Where it's nice to have those picks, but again, you want it to come in sequence, right? More than having everybody come at once. You got that's out of my scope. I'd like to dump as many players in Bill's lap as I can. Does that mean we're doing something right?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So and so would he. You'd like to have that problem.
Yeah.
So it's so we assess talent at the first half of the year. Second half of the year, we filter that with character and compete side of it, and that'll wash guys out. Like I touched on earlier, it might wash some of those skill guys out that are just soft skill, and it'll bring some other guys up that are dimensional in that area. Like this guy he's big, he moves, he's a force. So there's a place for that guy. So that's like I say, there's a lot that goes into it. It's funny because I always have guys go, "Oh, you got such a glamorous job," and I'm like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Do you like to work nights?" "No." "Do you like to work weekends?" "No." "Do you like to be away on holidays?" "No." "What? Not a great job for you."
How's that for glamour?
That's a glamour work.
I don't hit too many birthdays. I don't hit too many holidays. It's just the nature of the beast, right? So you live in hotels. I know most every doorman as well as I knew all the doormen in the penalty boxes back when I played, right? "Hey, how's your family, George?" "Good, yeah." "That's great." Same as the doorman. When you're on first name basis with some of those guys, you don't have a life. So you're living in a hotel. But
you mentioned something, and I just thought of a question as a result of it. You said you get to know the doormen in the penalty box. Are those guys pretty neutral? Do they keep their mouths quiet? I mean, they're not chirping the players or saying, "What the heck were you thinking?" at all.
No, not at all. And most of the times, even if you're on the road, they're on your side, because I've had a few. There's some guys that are always beaking you and stuff, and then he'd be sitting there with his girlfriend in $300 seats and thinking he's the show, and I'd call over the security guy. I'm like, "That guy just threw beer on me. You're out." He'd fire the guy out. And
Okay, all right.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? So,
I like it.
well, that's normally in Chicago, because you would get beer thrown on you in Chicago back in the old stadium. But so it's
They're pretty decent guys.
So I have a question about being the top dog in the amateur scouting, and you have all these guys underneath you in all these regions you mentioned. At what point do you decide that I need to go get eyes on that kid myself? Or do you see them all?
Yeah, no, we have a criteria, like we have a letter-based criteria, and if the player hits that letter, it's automatic. We call it a crossover coverage, which is not only me, but we have I have a couple guys that cross over as well. Like but they have their own area, but they will cross over after a point in time, and so then there's more. We got a number of opinions on the player rather than mine, because like I say, it's a humbling business. There's no such thing as a sure thing, because I've drafted a few of those guys that never played. It's a sure thing that didn't play.
Damn.
So everybody's got them. And I mean, you have to be humble in this business. But that's where it makes you really start to look back at, like, what I talked about character-wise, because it's like society has changed. Now we have agents coming into parents' homes. You know, that's a business. So they're trying to get a one step up on the next company. So they're coming in earlier and earlier and earlier every year to try. Now they're talking to 13-year-olds, telling their parents, 13 to 15, telling their parents your kid's a star.
Yeah.
Parents tell the kid you're a star. Kid goes up to play, and the coach goes, "You're not a star. It's not your fit." "What do you mean I'm not a star?" "I'm a star. I've been told I'm a star my whole life."
Everyone else is telling me
right?
that. Yeah.
So where a character guy will come in and go, "Oh, I can't be that guy. You know, these guys are way better." You know, back to actually my story. You know, when I first came in and going, there's no way I could be that guy. So I have to reinvent myself. You know, and I always tell, when I talk to players, I played with two guys over my career, Yari Lettinen and Guy Carbonneau, both drafted as offensive, on an offensive premise. Both made their careers as the best defensive players in the game. Totally reinvented themselves.
Sure.
Carbonneau
That's
made
character.
it to the Hall of Fame.
Both of them.
Yeah. Oh, they're both in the Hall of Fame. Okay.
And that's character. That's a guy that goes, "I'm not as good as I thought I was. To do that, I have to find another avenue and then be the best at that." And that's what those guys did. And I mean, those are prime examples of it. And I try to tell as many young players that as I can. You know, like, you have to try not to be one-dimensional. You want to try to, have as many facets to your game as possible, because that gives you just more opportunity to have a career. So if you're one-dimensional and that's not good enough, then that's not good enough.
Yeah.
You talked about, these scouts, agents, whatever, coaches going to these kids at age 12 and 13 and, hey, you're a star, you're a stud, whatever. Is there an age limit of kids that you will look at as far as youth-wise? I mean, do you go look at 12 and 13-year-olds?
No, I don't.
Okay.
We have, the youngest we do is we send guys into the under-17s. It's more in the, they have both. They have in the U.S., but we have an under-17 tournament where they bring all the players from all over the country, like all over the world around, as well as U.S. and Canadian. And then so those guys will build a book on those guys at that time. I won't go to that. But normally for me, my time spent around draft eligibles only. And in turn, I will see younger and older players over my travels. So I'll see some of these underages by accident and build my book on those guys, as well as, like I say, it's never over till it's over. Just because the guys went through his draft year doesn't mean he can't be a player. It might take him a little longer to get there, but you got to keep an open mind to everybody. So it's a lot of players when you look at it, and then you got to try to make sense of it and put them into an order in relative to asset value. And so people have no idea what it really entails, because there's a lot.
You got to have one hell of an organizational skill built inside of you to be able to handle all this.
Well, thank God for computers and stuff you could document, and because I even go back and I go, God, I did see that guy. Like, I didn't even know I seen him. And you look back and you see so many players, and it's good to look back too. I use we have depth charts of every team, so every time I'm looking at player A, I go, he reminds me of this guy that plays for the Sharks. I'll go back and reread my stuff on him 10 years ago.
Okay. All right.
You know what I mean? And see, okay, well, this guy has a lot of those attributes. Can he have the same career? So you're just trying to find ways to get answers. right? And make separation.
Yeah.
Biggest thing is making separation from players, okay? Because you got this big glob of players, and now you got to start pulling guys out and making sense. Well, how do you why are these guys the three top guys? Why are, so.
Yeah.
And we have continued discussion throughout the year with our staff. We have, 3 or 4 internal meetings where we come back and do the list, which is it's a moving target. And then we'll meet before the draft, and then we'll meet at the draft, and then we'll put the final touches on the draft list at the draft, which is usually your work's already done. But then you have the NHL Combine, which is before the draft. They're bringing in all the top prospects. They do all the testing for them there. But we also, at times, when guys are missed there in Europe, we'll have our own in Europe, and we'll have our own in North America, in Florida. So it's you're just trying to get as many answers, as much information, physically, mentally, as you can on these guys. And we have shrink psychologists. We have, if there's an issue with a medical issue, we'll run that guy through our own medical staff. We'll talk to teachers. We'll talk to people that have hired them. We'll talk to friends.
Do a complete
if they're high end picks, and you're investing millions and millions of dollars in these guys, you can't leave any rock, unturned.
No stone uncovered.
Uncovered, yeah.
So speaking of that, how you zero in on these kids there. There's always talk around small towns in particular that a player would be noticed if they played in a bigger type of system. Okay, in your opinion, if a player's good enough, will they get noticed?
I just look back at my own path. Like I said, as a town of 7,000 people, somebody found me.
Yeah.
You know, and it like again today with video, there's no more. We used to be able, when I first started, used to be able to hide guys going, this guy's not getting much play. He lives way out in the middle of nowhere. Not all the guys are going to come out of here. We won't have to deal with the whole league. We might have to deal with a couple teams. But since the videos came out, there's no more secrets. It's just comes down to just as a player outworking the team across from you. Like who does the most due diligence. Who's beating all the bushes, like putting the extra in, and it's not it's just like any other job. Not everybody's a 100%er,
Sure.
So you could take advantage of those teams that have those people.
I don't know that I could do your job. I mean, I'd be afraid of failure all the time. You go to the GM and say, this is your top 2 picks, and they turn out to be horse crap. Holy Jesus, that's a lot on your shoulders.
Yeah, especially the high picks, because there's monetary value attached to those guys. They automatically get millions.
Sure.
So you miss on a few of those guys, the owner is kind of going, who's the guy that's costing me all that money down there?
Are we sure we got the right guy doing that job?
So it is. It's but again, we have so many checks and balances, but I always say there's no such thing as a sure thing. Guys, I can't tell how many people come up to me, that guy's a sure thing, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I've seen that, heard that, said it myself, and I've been wrong, So, but
I got one more question for you, and that is, tell us what happened that you stopped playing. What ended your career?
Well, as we touched on coming in, you seen me wearing a knee brace. It was a knee injury, and they totally. I did 5 surgeries every 3 months, one every 3 months, and they totally rebuilt my knee. And then the last one was this ACL that I just ruptured, and they put a cadaver part in it, and I got staph infection twice. So they removed all of those, and they replaced it with what I had left and said, you're done. Because the next time you injure that, it's fake knee time, and I was still a fairly young lad at the time, and because they go technology at that point, they only had 10-year lifetimes on those knees. So you guys both have them. What are they now?
Oh,
I was afraid to ask.
Oh, really?
well, as long as I don't do anything stupid, eternity, really.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's where technology's come. So,
yeah.
So that was, as bad as I still wanted to play, I still wanted to have a quality of life. I love being outdoors. I worked my body hard. I'm surprised I got that much out of it until it gave away. But yeah, so that's where that is.
That's the way it is. I got to tell you, this has been
fun.
This has been a blast.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Insight that you have given us about the scouting and this kid from population of 7,000 that made a hell of an impact in the NHL. We truly appreciate you taking the time.
I'm glad to be here, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to stop in and say hi to our sponsors and leave us a shout out on your favorite social media platforms.
And a big thanks here to our special guest, Shane Churla, and thank you to our friends here at Tavern 23, as well as you, our faithful listeners. Please remember our sponsors, Riverside Bike and Skate, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dooley's Pub, Ryan Flagg at State Farm Insurance, Eau Claire Ford, and Williams Diamond Center. Please follow us on your favorite social media platforms, and remember, folks, until next time, keep your head on a swivel and stay on your inside edges.